Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. Shiva. It's Labor Day, Monday. It's close to 9. I want to welcome everyone to this evening's discussion. And our discussion is going to be a follow-on to the discussion we had earlier. But on Labor Day, I want to put forward the concept of, do you want to stop being a sucker? Because both left and right steal, divide, and abuse you. That's really the topic. The topic is a continuation of what we talked about, but today, we're going to first of all review what is Labor Day and sort of the holiday of what Labor Day is really about. Nice to have you, Phil Boardman. We have Ibrahim Yarak from Toronto. Great to have you guys. So we're going to talk about what is Labor Day, what was the origin of this day, and some of the interesting ways it was actually diffused from really being celebrated with May Day by Reagan. And then we're going to go talk about what the dynamics of what's going on between the left and the right, okay? And how ultimately both wings of the establishment essentially are, their goal is to essentially get you desperate, get you divided, get you essentially complacent. So someone says, hello from California. Nice to have you, Donna. So that's what we're going to talk about, exactly, to the point. And then we're going to pose a question, what do you want to do about this? Do you want to really remain a sucker? It's really about what do you want to do, okay? Because you have a choice and you don't have to be in this sort of theater. So let me first of all review what is Labor Day and the origins of it, okay? If you go look at it, it'll say, well, we want to celebrate American labor. But when you actually consider what actually occurred, the day should really be celebrated on May 1st. And throughout the world, May 1st is International Workers' Day. Some of you may know that, except in the United States, okay? It's fascinating. May 1st is International Workers' Day, except in the United States. Great to have you from Austin. Great to have you from Canada. And why is that? So let's go back, look at what occurred. Why May 1st through the rest of the world is really, quote unquote, Labor Day, and May Day, International Workers' Day. And what you're going to find is something fascinating. We speak to a global audience. Again, many of you all over the world likely celebrate May 1st. It's a day off for all workers. So where did May 1st really originate from? Does anyone know? I've talked about this. We talk about it in our course within the Truth, Freedom, Health system. May 1st, really, the Labor Day on May 1st really originated in the United States. What occurred on May 1st? Well, we got to go back to what was occurring in the 1800s, in the late 1800s. In the late 1800s, it was called a period of the Great Upheaval. And you can look it up. I don't think it's really taught in English history class, but it was known as a period of the Great Upheaval. And during that period of time, in the United States, we were transitioning from the agriculture era to the industrial era, and working people were frankly being abused. It was a time in the United States when factory workers worked 20 hours a day, 16, 20 hours a day. There was child labor. Protests were starting in places like Lowell, Massachusetts. And in 1886 was a very interesting incident, which is called the Haymarket Affair. Now, leading up to May 1st, there were literally close to 500,000 protests across the United States. 500,000 protests reaching, that's sort of conservative measures, reaching 1 million people protesting all across the United States. This is in 1886. And what were they protesting for? They were protesting for the 8-hour workday. In fact, the slogan was 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, and 8 hours for what we wish to do, okay? And that protest was emerging all over the United States. And this was not like the bogus thing that's been heisted by Robert Kennedy, who basically runs bogus protests and raises money for himself. And that's what's going on now. This was a real bottoms-up movement. It wasn't top-down, driven by the Kennedys, which is what the Kennedys do. Historically, they take over movements. They know there's be a bottoms-up movement for the establishment. We'll talk about this. Someone just put something supporting some nonsense Kennedy's trying to pull off to raise more money for himself. But that was a period of when working people were uniting bottoms up, not top down control demonstrations. And we'll talk about that. And when those workers' movements rose bottoms up, Chicago was the center of all of this. Chicago had a very vibrant working class movement. So May 1st, millions of people working people across the United States are protesting, and Chicago is the center of it. And on May 3rd, there was a pretty big demonstration. It continued. There were 30, 40,000 people that came up. It was completely nonviolent. And the police fired on the workers. All right. And they made it violent. So the next day, working people showed up again. And somehow, dynamite gets thrown into the crowd. And apparently a police was injured, killed, and they blamed it on the workers. Still to this day, no one really knew who threw that dynamite. And then that resulted in 4 American workers in a series of trials that were hung. 4 American workers were hung in the United States fighting for the 8-hour workday. Okay? In commemoration of those 4 workers, throughout the world, May 1st was deemed International Workers' Day. So in commemoration of those 4 American workers, May 1st was deemed International Workers' Day. So let me repeat that again. 4 American workers were hanged for fighting for the 8-hour workday, and workers all over the world honored those movements and those workers and deemed May 1st International Workers' Day. What the United States never fully recognized, someone said false flag. It probably was a false flag because this was a bottoms-up movement that was growing in the United States. And in fact, by the late 1800s, early 1900s, it had grown all throughout the world. Workers Unite was really a slogan. Long before Karl Marx really made it popular, the term Workers Unite has existed before, okay? And in the 1900s, in the United States, this movement grew, and the Russian Revolution grew. So all over, working people were rising up in this major transition that was taking place from the agriculture era to the industrial era, the abuse of working people. And it was a very powerful time in history because this was truly bottoms up. This wasn't, as I mentioned, like this fake top-down protests that are taking place today in the world. Not all of them are like that, but whenever you see a name Kennedy associated with a demonstration, know that it's top-down. Okay? So, and I'll come back to that to explain that, but as these bottoms-up workers movement grew, those workers movements scared the shit out of the elites. Whether it be Russia, whether it be India, whether it be Europe, whether it be Ireland, whether it be Australia, whether it be in the United States. And in the United States, for example, those workers' movements forced the elites during the time of the Depression to give those workers certain freedoms, certain things. And they thought by giving these workers these rights, these reforms, that they would quiet them down. Now, the people leading those movements at the time didn't have enough political theory, enough scientific basis to continue growing those movements. So in the early 1900s, 1930s, Franklin Delano Roosevelt comes in, and the New Deal threw some bones to the workers, very important bones, which were gains of those bottoms-up movements. So elimination of child labor, you had the development of infrastructure, water systems. If you look at that period, as the infrastructure that was put in is what really brought down measles. All these diseases came down because of that infrastructure, which were one of the gains of these workers' movements. Long before, 1963, when the measles vaccine came out, by 1945, 18 years before, right, 98% of measles was wiped out because of the infrastructure. Vaccines had very minimal effect. So you can see it was a power of the working class rising up, bottoms up, that got all these gains. Well, when Reagan came into power in 1980, May Day was changed to Law Day. It was wiped out of the history books, and Labor Day gets put over as we have it today, in early September here. But we don't celebrate. American workers are purposely not taught to celebrate Workers' Day with the rest of workers all over the globe. And you have to think about why, okay? Now, in 1950, the elites, the left and the right, came together. And they came together to recognize that they could never, ever have this kind of bottoms-up workers' movements ever again. It was deadly to the elites because in the 1930s and 40s, they got a lot of gains. In the early 1900s, the Russian Revolution took place. The might of the Russian working class rose up, and they overthrew a czar, and they were attempting to build, a true state where working people could rise, and 14 countries tried to invade Russia. Stalin really was not really a leader. He was more of a wartime guy. And you saw what happened in Russia, but there was a period in Russian history when working people rose up. It was a force of the Russian workers who overthrew the czar, and it was a force of the American workers who scared the shit out of the elites. Now, the elites globally never wanted to see this occur again. So the plan that they hatched was the following. The right wing in the United States with a guy called McCarthy, they unleashed what was called the McCarthy era. And they said that if you ever use the word workers unite, if you ever want to build a bottoms-up movement, you'll be branded a communist, a Marxist. So they did what was called the Red Scare. Okay? But they worked with the left. They worked with the left to make sure the left took over all the workers' unions. So they made all the workers' unions no longer organic bottoms up. They made them top down. So the workers' unions, which were truly vibrant, dynamic, bottoms up, organic movements, got controlled from the top. So you had over here, the right wing attacked the workers, and the left wing took over the workers' movements. And then the left and right colluded. They started creating drama and theater, making up issues. And you look at that period from the 50s, 70s onward, everything gets divided into left and right. And by the 1970s in the United States, and for that matter throughout the world, you'll see the quote unquote Labor Party or the Democratic Party. All those parties are the quote unquote communist parties, okay? In India, they had the CPI of India. They're basically all one big left-wing movements, which are top-down controlling workers. They tell the workers when to hold up a protest, when to not to do a protest. The Kennedy clan now is doing a global walkout. Same thing. It's a top-down movement. It's not real. It's not bottoms up. So all of the movements became top-down workers' movements. Workers were told when they could strike, when they could not strike. If you look between the 1900s to 1970, there were close to 100 million workers protesting. Okay, 11,000 strikes. So starting in the 50s to the 70s, the workers' movement gets destroyed and hijacked. Left and the right work together. And by the 70s till today, there's very, very few workers' protests taking place. They're all controlled, top down. And the right wing, it loves it because now they could work with the Democrats or the Labor Party to tell when to strike. They could fake like they are enemies of each other. Fake. Drama. It's all theater. That's why you can't be a sucker to this. So the left and the right wing controlled the unions and they consolidated power. They both print money as they need. And they started essentially dividing the working class. The Democrats are supposed to be the party of the working class, and the Republicans are supposed to be a party of, frankly, the white working class, okay? And the Republicans split some of the white working class, and hijacked the minority working class. And this was what got set up. So between 1970 till today, there's been very, very few protests, very few bottoms-up movements. And that's where we're at today. Exactly. Ken Fielding said, union organizers make backroom deals that do not represent union members' interests. Well, that don't represent the workers' interests. So what's happened is that the left and right have become quite sophisticated. They essentially, everything they do is to entertain you, not to educate you. And they entertain you and keep you distracted while those in power continue doing these cycles of booms and busts, as we talked about, okay? So they'll have a boom cycle, then they'll have a bust cycle, a boom cycle and a bust cycle. And throughout these booms and bust cycle, the establishment makes money throughout this process. During the boom cycle, they withhold money, and during the bust cycle, they print money, and so on. And both parties, both wings of the establishment print money all day on your backs. Obama printed $8 trillion in the United States in 2 terms. Trump printed $7 trillion in 1 term. And Biden is printing about $2 to $3 trillion already. You see, both wings of the establishment are entertaining you while these boom and bust cycles take place. But most importantly, what they do is they get you conspiracy theoried out. So on the right wing, they have all these ridiculous conspiracy theorists who basically scare people. The world's going to end. This is going to happen. Start prepping, get my gun, do this. And they take advantage of the white working class. And on the left wing, they take advantage of minorities, a lot of poor, again, another segment of the white working class. So that's what's been going on. And you can see, for example, the January 6th event, okay? A lot of drama. Trump is the one who told those people to go to the Capitol. Meanwhile, he hijacked it the other way. A lot of white working class people are in prison. It was our movement, which actually in Massachusetts in 2020, which actually discovered real election fraud issues, which have all been thrown under the rug that could help all working people. Trump made $500 million out of talking about bogus things. He didn't talk about the substantive issues. And then the left wing of the establishment said, oh, all this stuff is nonsense. And then they had the January 6th events, as some of you may know. Well, in the January 6th events, if you actually go look at what occurred, both wings made money. Thank you, Mumtaz Shamsi, for your very nice donation. Yeah, it seems to me that establishment and WEF are determined to do the controlled demolition of economy and make sure everyone is poor and easily controllable, systematically shut down economy and quietly move forward with food stamps. Exactly. Now, if you look at the January 6th events, it was literally a fundraising spree for both wings of the establishment. And you can see by this, for example, the Democrats made millions of dollars fundraising off January 6th. Well, so did Trump, okay? All of his donors gave him money. But more recently, working people, as this political article says, Trump fatigue sets in. Some donors are getting sick of the shit show, okay? So people are getting sick of this, which is a good thing, which is a very good thing. So that's why I wanted to, when I entitled this title today, we said on Labor Day, maybe we should honor those working people on Labor Day and really ask yourself, do you want to end being a sucker? So on Labor Day, stop being a sucker, because both the left and the right steal, divide, and abuse you. That's what's really going on. The right wing has all of its people who are spreading so much crazy stuff. And they're getting many of the right wing talk show hosts, podcasters are actually racist. They're racist towards white people. Tucker Carlson, they take advantage of poor whites in the United States. Donald Trump, they take advantage of poor white people. So when I say these people are racist, I'm not saying they're racist. Yeah, they probably hate black people, but they're truly racist. These white talk show hosts, these white podcasters, the Alex Joneses, they actually hate white people because they treat them like suckers. So they get them all hyped up. They tell them to go prep. They tell them to go do this. They get them all desperate. And a lot of those people make a lot of mistakes. They make financial mistakes. I shared with you last week, a friend of mine who's, poor white person, made a lot of money through working hard, bought a beautiful apartment in New York. And she said, oh my God, New York City's going to hell. I saw so much of these shows, these podcasts are saying everything's going to go to hell. She sells her beautiful home, and now the prices are going up. You see, because the elites know how to do these downward and upward cycles. So poor people who are suckers sell when the price is low and they're buying when it's high. Warren Buffett buys when it's low and he sells you stuff when it's high. All right. So again, do you want to stop being a sucker on Labor Day? Because those people in 1886 and the 1900s, all the infrastructure we have in the world and anything working people have came from bottoms up movements. The elites never gave you anything. In fact, starting in the 60s and the 70s, the elites got even smarter. They said, these working people are going to build these bottoms up movements. So we're going to control them top down, whether it be the civil rights movements, whether it be anti-war movements, whether it be workers' movements. The Kennedys, Robert Kennedy Jr. himself, who says he's for medical freedom when he really isn't, he's a big fool and a fraud. He basically talks about he's for medical freedom when at his own home, he said anyone who needed to come into his home for a party there had to be vaccinated. He endorsed Hillary Clinton 3 times, knowing she was a vaccine queen and she was pro-Monsanto. But a bunch of idiots think Robert Kennedy is fighting for them. And now he's doing some global walkout. It's all bullshit. It's top down. The Kennedys have a history of doing this. In 1960s, there was a truly bottoms-up civil rights movement developing. They took over the civil rights movement. You can read about it if you study it. It's well written about. The Southern National, the Students' a Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and the Kennedy clan took over. The entire March on Washington was run by the Kennedys and the SNCC. Controlled top down, the I Have a Dream speech. They plucked Martin Luther King out. He was a bourgeois black minister. He wasn't like Malcolm X, bottoms up. And they took over those movements. So you have to get smart nowadays. You have to realize who is truly coming bottoms up and who's top down. Donna Hanson here says, I was a Kennedy follower until I heard you and you opened my eyes. Thank you. So we got to wake up. As Donna did, we all got to wake the fuck up. Because right now, Trump made about $90 million, as I understand, in August from the raid. Alex Jones makes money off Sandy Hook. So the right wing, quote unquote, the right wing is abusing the white working class, while the left wing abuses the minority working class. And they make sure working people, black and white, do not unite all over the world. In India, they split up people by religion, by region, same in Europe, etc. And all this is intended, if you look at the arc of human history, this is all intended so working people don't collectively organize for their interests. Okay? You're welcome, Jay. It is intended so you outsource your future to one wing of the establishment. And this is how they steal, divide, and abuse you. One of the things I also shared last week was I recommended all of you go do some homework. And let me take you to that site. As you know, most of you know, I'm an educator. So as a part of your education, I directed you to the Truth, Freedom, and Health site. And I shared with you this very interesting diagram, which is right up here. This is how those in power work, the left and the right. They feed you ignorance. You're fed ignorance every day that leads you to illusion. You get confused, you get desperate, you get divided, and you get complacent. And all this is intended so you don't build a bottoms-up movement. So today on Labor Day, even though it should really be May 1st, whatever as it may be, I think it's really, really important everyone honors those 4 men who were hanged for fighting for the 8-hour workday. 20 million Russians lost their lives fighting Hitler. It's been wiped out of the history books, what they really fought. It has always been working people who have fought for our rights. We're working people, they fought for our rights. And it's really, really important that we honor those people who fought for those rights. And we don't outsource our future to the elites to fight for us. I mean, you got to really understand. I mean, if you look at the US politics, you have bumbling Biden, who that's a shit show. But let's not forget, Trump, it's really important not to forget Trump. Trump comes out of the worldwide wrestling entertainment. If you go online and you type in, Vince McMahon, maybe I can find it here, right? Vince McMahon and Trump, you'll find that very, very interesting, incident. Let me bring it up here, where I think I found it here.
The way people buy has fundamentally changed.
Let me shut it. You'll find where Trump essentially is shaving Vince. Let me play this for you, and you'll get it, and you'll understand that these guys are entertainers. Okay, they're not here to fight for you. They're entertaining you. So let me just play this quick video, and you'll understand the garbage of what you're actually dealing with. Let me play this for you right here. Anyway, this is the president, the former president of the United States. He comes from an entertainment culture. Go look at Trump's son-in-law. Jared Kushner made $2 billion off the Saudis. Trump made $500 million off election fraud or more. Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, makes money selling crazy paintings. Tucker Carlson and Hunter Biden are like this, Republican and Democrat. And yet, people unfortunately become suckers for these people. And it's time you have to stop being suckers in honor. Yeah, that's what it said. Heather says, the theater is astounding, isn't it, Justin? Political ping pong. Yep, it actually is pure theater. InfoWars, pure theater. And why do I say theater? Theater is about entertainment. It's not about educating and building a movement. What we're doing with Truth, Freedom, and Health is to educate you through the videos we do, to break you from this left-right illusion, and to, if I can go back to this diagram here on the Truth, Freedom, and Health website, and again, I encourage all of you to go study this. This is this world of ignorance. And the people who are perpetrating this ignorance are these people, these gurus, Trump, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan. Yeah, they may be nice people. They may be telling you some information, but really they're the machinery of ignorance because they entertain you. They imprison you by seducing you into senseless left and right pro and anti tirades. They never deliver any solutions. They're not about delivering you solutions. Someone says Australia is a perfect example. Right. They gave us a guy with a TV show with authority, kind of like Ukraine people. Wake up. Exactly. All right. So what's the way out of this? Well, the way out of this is you have to get educated. You have to get knowledge, which is different than information. And this information will lead you to wisdom through knowledge. And knowledge is really learning the science of systems, which gets you clarity. Now you get active, you get innovative, you get organized, like those working people did in the 1900s and late 1800s. Those are the people we owe a lot to. They were active, they were humans, they built community. Our movement builds community. The Truth, Freedom, and Health movement is dedicated to the working people of the world. And we have to create a bottoms-up, truly a bottoms-up movement. Do not get seduced by these top-down movements run by the Kennedys and run by these unions. They're bogus movements. They're just, again, theater. They don't win anything. They don't solve any problems. They're just pure theater. Okay? And so on Labor Day, let's really think about all those people who shed their blood, their lives, so we could have the life we have today. And it's very important that we build this bottoms-up movement, independent of outsourcing to celebrities, independent of outsourcing to politicians and gurus. And the good news is at Truth, Freedom, and Health, we've created that infrastructure. We've created that infrastructure so we can get that knowledge. And that infrastructure really looks like this. You know, tonight, it's the knowledge that will deliver you wisdom. It's a system, no different than the email system. It's a platform. You learn the science of systems. You get books. You learn how your body is a system. You learn science to think beyond food is good or bad. You get a whole community of people. We've created technology which is independent of left and right. You can go look at it here, and I encourage you to do that. You get the Foundations of Systems course. You learn to think whole. You get books. You get theory. You get to get practical understanding of how to use your body as a system to understand that no food is good or bad. It's how you use it for your own benefit. You get lectures. You get systems health. You get connecting with me directly. You get a whole community of people who are waking the hell up and recognizing they don't want to be used anymore. And then you get tools for activism. We've created tools. Again, we recognize everyone works for a living. We've created so you can do 20 minutes a day. You can get on the ground, educate your fellow workers, your fellow neighbors. But we need to build this bottoms-up movement. We got to get out of this nonsense of being exploited by the left and the right. That's where we're at. So, again, on Labor Day, stop being a sucker. Both left and right steal from you, they divide, and they abuse you. It's that simple. And so really think about Labor Day. Think about all those working people who fought wars of imperialism to help the elites for no reason. All those working people who fought for the infrastructure we have today. And all those working people in Russia, in Europe, particularly Russian workers died, fighting Nazis. And we really have to pay tribute to them. And the tribute we pay to them is by organizing a bottoms-up movement. We have to let go of the Kennedys. We have to let go of these fake movements. And to rebuild a movement requires, number one, the right political theories. One of the reasons I wrote System and Revolution, which all of you guys get for free, when you go to truthfreedomandhealth.com and you join the system and you use the system for your own benefit. I'm not really here to sell people anything. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to do is to let people know that we need to build a movement. We've created the infrastructure to do it. We're not here to convince anyone, but those people are ready. We're here. And it is the only way forward for us to get true humanity. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in this left-right, up and down cycles. And at every cycle that this thing goes up and down, working people get more and more enslaved. And the rich get richer. And you need to take a systems approach to understanding how things work. You can't be like the blind man, not seeing the whole elephant, but seeing the parts. Let me take some questions and some comments that we have. Someone says, number one priority for every freaking Democrat and every freaking ballot before they ruin the USA. Well, Marty, it's not just the Democrats, it's also the Republicans. I'm a registered Republican, but it was Massachusetts. It's the Republicans who stole the election from me. It's not Democrats or Republicans, Marty. You're only getting half of the point here. It's both parties, both wings of the establishment. Don't be entertained, Marty. Don't be in this WWE wrestling. Thank you again. Online call. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire 1911 showed the world that even in New York City, worker safety was highly neglected. Exactly. Okay? We need to understand that. Those in power will, and don't get freaked out by all of these conspiracy theories. You see, there's way too many podcasters doing conspiracy theory without teaching you the fundamentals, as I'm explaining to you here. Yeah, the elites may want to depopulate people. Yes, they may want to have a pandemic, which we predicted back in early 2020. They'll do anything to keep the cycle of up and down going because that's where they make money. If they want to do this destruction or that destruction or this pandemic, this is just normal. You can't be so freaked out by the event and start, just focus on the conspiracy. It doesn't get you anywhere. It's really the focusing on all these conspiracies is really a way of you not doing your historic duty, which is to, understand theory, understand how to think from a systems perspective, which is what we teach, understand how to organize, which is the infrastructure we provide, understand how to connect people. If you're always involved in some crazy conspiracy theory, guess what's happening? You're giving money to an Alex Jones, or you're giving money to a Donald Trump, or you're giving money to some podcaster, but you're not educating yourself. You're not getting educated. You're getting more and more enslaved. Enslavement here is getting more desperate, more distracted, more complacent, more divided. It's not about Democrat or Republican, Labor Party or Tory, BJP or Congress, wherever you are throughout the world. It's about building a bottoms-up movement. It's about not wanting to be enslaved anymore. And that's why on Labor Day, you have to truly honor labor. It is labor, working people creating stuff that is true power. And that's where power has always come from. And those in power know this. So they spend a lot of time separating working people, black and white, left and right, all sorts of stuff. East and West, Russian, non-Russian, Russian and Ukraine, whatever it is. And this is where the effort of the elites go. And they want you to be entertained. So you sit on the sidelines. I don't just want you to watch this video. I want you to go to Truth, Freedom, and Health. I want you to participate. I want you to distribute flyers. I want you to get on the ground, meet with people, talk to people, build a movement. That's why I do these videos. It's not to entertain you. If you want to be entertained, this is not the place. But if you want to build a movement and you want to understand the dynamics, the science, the community, you want to understand how your body has the same forces that are needed to build a movement that are the same force in the universe, then, participate in these videos, but participate, learn, teach, and serve. Anyway, that's really the message on Labor Day. And the real message is, let me go back to this, stop being a sucker, because both left and right steal, divide, and abuse you. And just to give you a couple of other messages here, go to truthfreedomhealth.com. Every Thursdays, 11 a.m. and 8 p.m., write this down, EST. I do an open house where you can directly interact with me and other of our community. One of our Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior scholars called me. She goes, Shiva, I'm going through some dire straits. I actually had a job. I couldn't pay my rent. She went homeless for a little bit. She's back in a new home. But she goes, I have this entire community of working people that I can communicate with. And they always encourage me. And she said, make sure you tell people the incredible community that the Truth, Freedom, and Health group offers. So 11 a.m. and 8 p.m., you get to meet that community. You can RSVP. There's no costs here. vashiva.com/orientation. Go up there and sign up. Go to Truth, Freedom, and Health. Find out the many, many ways we've created for you to be part of this get the knowledge, use the system. And by the way, that knowledge there, I used to charge tens of thousands of dollars, but no working person can afford it. When we gave it away free, no one valued it. So we charge a very nominal amount. So you can afford it. You spend more on what we request than anyone, on many, many other things. We run our own infrastructure on our own platform. Truth, Freedom, and Health runs in our data center. We've created the technologies for you guys to communicate independent of big tech. So take advantage of it. We have a lot of volunteers who work every day to make sure that you learn, teach, and serve. Right now in that room, a gentleman by the name of Ken and John. Ken's a hair esthetician. John's a videographer. And they're training now other people on system science. So I don't have to do it anymore. We train you to teach, learn, and serve. This is truly a bottoms-up community. So anyway, it's Labor Day. Honor labor. Honor yourself. Let go of this left-right nonsense. Let's build a bottoms-up movement. That's what we need to do. Thank you, everyone. Have a good Labor Day. Be well.